What if I told you there's a secret way to communicate to developers and make sure they actually understand what you're saying? In this video, I want to run through building prototypes and why they're so important to building good software. I'm Matt Grace, Managing Director of Flying Donkey. Let's get into it. All right, what are prototypes and wireframes? Let's quickly start with wireframes. Wireframes are low fidelity designs of the screens that you're trying to build. These generally can be done on paper or on the computer and are very line-drawn ways of showing a screen on how it's going to operate. They're generally not interactive and they don't move between screens. They're purely there to describe what information and data is shown on each screen. A prototype, on the other hand, is going to show you how the site is actually going to interact together. So simply clicking on a button inside a prototype is going to simulate moving between those buttons in the site itself. At the same time, we also see prototypes moving towards integrating design elements to show colors and styling, to give a really good end feel for the product. In all my years in building SaaS products and software, prototyping is the best way to convey information to developers. It's simple, it's clear and concise. They understand it and they build better products. At the same time, it's got plenty of positives around showing it to stakeholders and investors because they also understand what's going on far better than a large 50-page document. How do you build prototypes and wireframes? We start off with wireframing. It's key to remember what the key concept to wireframing is, and that is to be fast and simple. The idea is to get your idea on paper and show roughly how the application will hang together and how the screens will interact. If you're putting too much detail in at this step, you're not really wireframing. So what are the steps you should run through to do wireframes? Firstly, you should put together your user stories. These are the overall steps that a user is going to take, written in short form user stories, and these user stories should then form the basis of the wireframes you design. Second step is to start drawing up your wireframes. Remember, the key here is to keep it as simple as possible. You can use any application you want, whether that be paint or even hand-drawn. Better applications such as Figma or Canva can also be integrated into this process, but it's key to keep things simple. No different fonts, no colors. We're trying to just convey the application itself in its simplest form. Now we've got these rough, low fidelity wireframes, it's time to take these to the stakeholders or to the clients and try and work out if this is what they were thinking. The key thing here is to try and get the functionality agreed so you can move on to the next step, which will be prototyping. Building a prototype is a very similar process to building a wireframe. The only difference is that you really start linking the pages together and bringing colors, fonts, and design elements into this. So if you first start off with your wireframes, or you start off with user stories at this step if you skip to wireframes, you'll list out exactly what functionality you're going to need. They're going to start drawing these prototypes. Now, generally speaking, we do prototyping here in Figma, and we highly recommend it as a great product to really bring things to life in a prototyping sense. Once you've drawn the screens together, you're going to add your colors, feel, styling, and you're going to start linking the screens together to make it feel and simulate like you're actually moving through an application. This is where the prototype starts really coming to life. The third and final step, again, is to test the prototype and then show it to your stakeholders or clients, because what this is going to do is it's really going to give them a clear understanding of exactly how the application is going to look, feel, and act once their prototype is actually developed. All right, we know what a prototype and wireframe is now. We know how the process on building them works. Let's jump into the list of what advantages there are for prototyping and wireframes. Firstly, they help establish relationships with both stakeholders and clients. This may sound a bit obvious, but essentially here, showing a prototype to a stakeholder or client is much easier going to convey what you're trying to do in the application rather than sending them back a document. The stakeholder and client doesn't need to visualize or imagine anything. They can see it right there on paper in front of them. It's probably one of the biggest advantages to prototypes in that it's a very clear way to communicate back to your stakeholders and clients. Second positive to prototype and wireframing is we actually recommend this to a lot of startups who are looking to go out and get investment. Obviously, investment and building a SaaS product is a bit of a chicken and egg situation. You need the cash to build the development, to build the product, to get more investment. But prototyping and wireframing is a really low cost, cheap and easy way to show and facilitate what your product is going to look like and how it's going to work. And again, you're not going to need that visualization from these potential investors to understand what's going on. You can simply build a prototype, take it back to them and walk them through it, whether that be a desktop SaaS product or even a mobile app. All these prototype applications can run on both mobile and desktop applications, and it's a really good way to convey this to investors. And we highly recommend this approach for startups to try and get a low-cost way to show a product when you actually haven't built any software just yet. The third benefit of prototyping and wireframing is they're relatively low cost and low risk. Because they're cheap and easy to build, it means that even if you start building them and the product doesn't work out, or you put it together for a set of investors, it's not going to be a huge waste of time. Conversely, if you dive in and write a large document and start building a piece of software, that can cost potentially tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars depending on the size of the project. This is where prototypes and wireframes are really good. They're quick, easy, and they convey what's going on, and therefore they are low risk. The final positive for prototype and wireframing, and it's really why I love it so much, is that developers really understand them far better than documentation, and I've seen this time and time again. Developers can see exactly what's going on, they can see how the page interacts, they can see the design. You get far better outcomes from developers who are working off prototypes than you do when ones are working off user stories. We come into businesses all the time, some use prototyping and some don't, and it's clear as day when you go into these businesses that don't use prototyping. The results and the output of the development is far different because developers interpret things differently. And that's what happens. When you've got words, different people will interpret them differently. Whereas when you've got a picture that it shows you exactly what you want, how it fits in, the context and the design, the developers generally will build it exactly how the prototype looks. How much do wireframes and prototypes cost? It's a really hard question to answer. It's always going to get the answer similar to how long is a ball of string. But pretty simply, we can put together a good dozen-page prototyping for almost under about $1,000. The thing is, to keep it very simple, to keep the pages clean and in line, you can really build a prototype very quickly, show off something you want to showcase to either your clients or potential investors. As I mentioned before, prototypes are quick and cheap, and because they're quick, that's what makes them cheap. It's highly recommended before you start any software project, whether it's an existing large project or a brand new business, that you really have a good look at prototyping and wireframing, because it really is a good, inexpensive way to get started on your project. In summary, I'm a big advocate for prototyping and wireframing. I think it really revolutionizes the way of delivering software. It achieves better outcomes, it's lower risk, it's easier to convey to both clients and potential investors, and overall, I almost see no negatives to prototyping and wireframing. If you want to get your application prototyped or wireframe, we have plenty of designers in-house here at Flying Donkey. We use cutting-edge design techniques and software such as Figma to deliver prototypes that you can use and show to your prospective clients. If you're interested in further projects on design, or looking to get a prototype done for yourself, feel free to reach out.